Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you've watched me for any length of time, you know that I believe very strongly in honesty and accountability, and today's video is an apology video that honestly I probably should have made a long time ago. If you follow me or watch my work now, you know that a lot of my content is centered around apprenticeships, apprentices, and some of these systems of abuse and inequality that come from the current apprenticeship model in tattoo and body piercing. I spend a lot of time being very outspoken about the abuse that can oftentimes happen in apprenticeships and trying to share education to protect apprentices so that they can go into this looking for a safe quality apprenticeship, but also to educate piercers, tattoo artists, studio owners about how to safely offer apprenticeships. But that wasn't always the case. I've existed in piercing and tattoo related spaces online for an incredibly long time, and my digital footprint has not always been one of apprenticeship advocacy. See, years ago when I was in the midst of my unpaid, overworked apprenticeships, I was a staunch believer in that system and model of apprenticeships. And I was 100% online, especially on Tumblr, talking about how if you wanted an apprenticeship, you had to be willing to work hard, you had to be willing to work for no money, you had to be willing to work long hours, and sacrifice all this stuff just to make it in the industry. I was a huge supporter of this model of apprenticeship for a very long time. And for that, I need to apologize. I did not know any better, but that did not make it an excuse for me to say those things and encourage support of those things. Recently, I had someone reach out to me who had stumbled across me on TikTok who used to follow me on Tumblr back in the day, and they were very surprised to see the way I was talking about apprenticeships now. They sent me a very long email saying that they'd seen me talk about my apprenticeships on Tumblr, they'd seen me brag about working 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, unpaid, and make it out to seem like everyone had to do that if they wanted to make it as an apprentice. And I definitely did say those things. I lived and worked that way for just shy of like 6 or 7 years across 3 different apprenticeships. None of my apprenticeships were paid. Most of them required for me to work unreasonably long hours. And as many of you know, as I've talked about here in my apprenticeship story, I dealt with a lot of abuse and a lot of violence in my apprenticeships. And I believed hook, line, and sinker that that was the way apprenticeships had to be. And it wasn't until my last apprenticeship that I started speaking out about this and started pushing back to my mentor and saying, this is not right, I'm not going to keep working like this. And it wasn't until I was fully out of that situation that I realized the gravity of the abuse that I had been enduring. This is in no way to make excuses for myself saying this, but I really genuinely believed it at the time, because when I was starting to get into this industry, when I was 16, 17, which was over 10 years ago now, this was what it was. I mean, the Alan Faulkner letter of, we don't need any more piercers, the industry is oversaturated, and if you do decide you want this, you better be willing to move across the country with whatever you can fit in your car and work unpaid for 2 years if you're serious. That letter from Alan was what everyone shared at the time. We were, I think, even before the time period of the Jeff Saunders letter to would-be apprentices, which was kinder, but still reflected those same views. As an aside, Jeff has updated this on his Patreon. Now it discusses apprentices working for a fair wage and having ethical treatment in their apprenticeships, and much like myself, Jeff and others in the industry have learned and grown and realized that what we used to think of as the correct apprenticeship model absolutely was not. But that's what it was at the time, and when I was getting into the industry, when I was looking for my 2nd and 3rd apprenticeships, I had basically every piercer who I idolized or look up to at the time tell me that I was fortunate for these apprenticeship opportunities, that I was lucky to have this chance to work unpaid 1,000,000 hours a week and deal with this stuff. And I believed them. I believed them, and I parroted that online to people who asked me about getting an apprenticeship, and I made it seem like you had to be willing to sacrifice, and I wore that sacrifice like a badge of honor. And I came online and I was proud to say that I had worked 100 hours last week and not gotten paid. I was proud to say that I was going hungry to make it as an apprentice. I felt like it showed how badly I wanted it and how serious I was. I thought that it would earn me respect from my peers for paying my dues and putting in this sacrifice. And I now realize that was completely wrong. I didn't when I was living it. No one who saw those posts that I made or asked me those questions or read my comments and felt dissuaded away from piercing or discouraged owes me any forgiveness or needs to change how they feel about me. But I do hope that in making this video and acknowledging that I've said those things and encouraged those systems of apprenticeships in the past, not trying to hide it, and also acknowledging that I was wrong, that I did not know any better. I was a 16 and 17-year-old listening to the words of my elders who certainly did not take the time to research labor laws or apprenticeship laws in the state. I was 16 and 17 and just absolutely blindly hanging on to the words of my peers and my elders who I thought were steering me in the right direction. And in doing so, I parroted the same harmful rhetoric about apprenticeships that led me to my instances of abuse and led others to theirs. And for that, I am incredibly sorry. I've learned and grown, and I think a part of me knew that it was wrong before I started really speaking up about it. But when you're still actively in an apprenticeship with a mentor like that, speaking up about it can also get you in a lot of trouble. So even though I knew what was happening in my workplace wasn't right, I still didn't really have the freedom to speak out about it online without jeopardizing my own safety until I left that situation. And now that I have, now that I'm in a situation where it's safe for me to speak out about this, and speaking out isn't going to jeopardize my physical safety or my mental and emotional well-being, and now that I've grown and learned better and learned more, I try and spend a lot of my time and a lot of my energy educating others so they don't have to make the same mistake that I did. I think it's important not to hide that I used to be someone who was pro bad apprenticeship models. I was someone who had a bad apprenticeship. Obviously, I agreed to 3 bad apprenticeships because I thought that was the right way to get into the industry. And at the time, I really thought I was giving my best. I was echoing and parroting what everyone I looked up to as an important piercer, everyone who was board members and leaders in the APP said about apprenticeships. And now I'm older and I'm wiser and I know better. And I am doing everything I can to hopefully correct the impact of the statements that I made back then and prevent others from having the same experiences in their apprenticeship that I had to. I hope that at the end of the day and at the end of my hopefully long career in piercing, my legacy is one of someone who grew and learned from those mistakes and championed apprentices tirelessly from the moment I realized that that was a problem. And you can be sure that I am going to continue making content about safe apprentices. I'm never going to stop speaking out about what safe apprenticeships can look like. And even if years in the future, what we're currently saying is the best model for apprenticeship ends up being wrong, I'm going to be excited to learn and grow from that and hopefully encourage newer, safer, better methods when it comes to apprenticing and anything else in piercing. This industry is always changing and always growing, and we are always learning how to do better. And part of that means acknowledging when we haven't done the best we could in the past. Thank you to all of those who've come along with me on this journey from way back when I was just on Tumblr reposting pictures of cool piercings and cool tattoos, all the way up to now, and all of the growth and change that that journey has entailed. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and to all of the apprentices or folks looking to get into the industry watching this video, please stay safe, learn from my mistakes, and make sure that you find an apprenticeship where you are valued and treated with respect and care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.